This took place on Halloween night in 2018. I was home from college for a long weekend, and my parents put me on candy duty for the night. As usual, my mom had bought a mountain of candy, even though our house is on a small street that doesn't get much foot traffic. Halloween fell on a Wednesday that year. The first kids started showing up around 5 p.m., and for the next few hours, it was pretty standard. My dog, Max, would go nuts every time the doorbell rang. By 8:30 p.m., the street was dead quiet. It was a weeknight, so I figured everyone had called it a night. I went upstairs to my room and put on a movie. I was probably an hour in when I heard the doorbell again. Max started barking from the foot of my bed. I checked my phone. It was 11:15 p.m. Way too late for anyone to be trick-or-treating. I went downstairs and peered through the peephole. On the other side of our glass storm door stood a man in a clown costume. He was tall, and the mask he was wearing was genuinely disturbing. He was by himself. He gave a slow wave and then held up an empty-looking canvas bag. Something about it felt off. I decided not to open the main door. I just called out through it, "Sorry, all out," and quickly backed away. I immediately regretted even acknowledging him. I had assumed it would be a teenager pulling a prank, but this person was huge. The bulky costume only made him seem larger. I waited by the stairs for a moment, listening for him to walk away. Instead, he rang the doorbell a second time. Max started barking again. I grabbed him, shut off the downstairs lights, and took him upstairs with me. I was sending a clear message. I was done for the night. I put Max in my room and closed the door to muffle his barking. I stood in the dark at the top of the stairs listening. That's when I heard a sharp cracking sound from the front of the house. It sounded like the latch on the storm door breaking. A second later, I heard the knob on the main door start to turn back and forth violently. At that point, I retreated to my room and locked the door. I was seriously unnerved. I sent a text to my family, but no one replied. I tried calling my older sister, but she was out with friends and brushed it off as a Halloween prank. She was probably right. It was the most logical explanation. After a few more minutes of silence, I started to calm down. The knocking had stopped. I lay down on my bed and eventually drifted off. It couldn't have been asleep for more than an hour when I was woken up by Max letting out a low, steady growl. He was standing at the edge of my bed, staring intently at the window. I sat up and listened. I could hear a faint, rhythmic thumping coming from outside. Against the side of the house. My bedroom is on the second floor. There was no reason for anyone to be out there. I crept over to the window and pulled the blinds apart just enough to see. And my blood ran cold. The man in the clown costume was right there, at my window. All I could see was that horrifying grinning mask on the other side of the glass. As our eyes met, he slowly tilted his head to one side. I don't remember screaming. I just remember grabbing my phone, running out of my room, and locking myself in the bathroom to call 911. My voice was trembling so badly I could barely speak to the operator. The police arrived in what felt like an eternity, but was probably less than 10 minutes. They searched the property, and the man was gone. But they found two things. The latch on the front storm door had been snapped clean off. And leaning against the wall, directly beneath my bedroom window, was the extension ladder my dad keeps in our unlocked shed. He had gone into our shed, found the ladder, and used it to climb up to my window. To this day, I have no idea if it was an elaborate, sick prank or if I was seconds away from becoming the victim of a crime, all under the cover of a holiday. Some memories from childhood stick with you for the wrong reasons. I was probably 7 or 8 at the time, back around 2009. That year, for Halloween, my mom made a decision she'd later regret. Instead of taking me trick-or-treating herself, she let me go with my friend Kevin and another kid from the neighborhood, Leo. Kevin and Leo were a little older than me. Kevin's house was a world I didn't fully understand. It had a permanent, musty smell of cats, and his older sister, who was always in charge, seemed to have a new boyfriend over every time I visited. She never really spoke to me. I hardly ever saw his parents. My mom dropped me off, thinking an adult would be supervising us. Once inside, I found Leah was already there, and we were all excited with our empty pillowcases ready for a huge candy haul. It soon became clear that we were going out on our own. A part of me felt a knot of anxiety, but the thrill of being unsupervised quickly took over. I knew my mom would have never allowed it. It was a Saturday, and we set out around 5:30 in the evening. As we made our way through the neighborhood, a few adults would ask where our parents were. Leo, being the oldest, had a ready-made lie. My mom is just up ahead with my sister. It worked every time. We planned to stay out for hours, determined to fill our sacks to the brim. After a while, we went back to Kevin's for a break. He heated up some frozen food, and we watched cartoons. At that age, I was jealous of his freedom. Looking back now, I realize how lucky I was to have parents who were strict. Eventually, Leo's mom came and picked him up, but Kevin and I weren't done. We decided to go out for one more round. By now, it was dark, probably past 10 p.m., and the streets were mostly empty. We ventured into a part of the neighborhood we hadn't hit yet, a little farther from home than I was comfortable with. While we were walking down a particularly quiet street, we saw a man a short distance behind us pushing a stroller. He was moving slowly, and we figured he was just a dad out with his kid. As we continued from house to house, the man gradually closed the distance between us. We could hear him making soft, shushing noises. Finally, he was right behind us. "You boys having a good night?" he asked in a friendly voice. We both nodded. "It's getting late," he said. "I'm heading home myself. I've got a ton of candy left over if you want it." Kevin and I exchanged a look. This was the jackpot. Kevin asked what kind he had. The man gestured to a heavy-looking bag hanging from the stroller's handle. He said, "All the good stuff." The stroller itself had a canopy pulled all the way down, completely hiding the child. He said, "My little one's asleep. Don't want to wake her." He pointed down the dark street. "My house is just right up there." We followed him. The neighborhood seemed to get quieter with every step. There were no other lights on, no other people around. The man kept a steady stream of questions: where we lived, what school we went to. I let Kevin answer. Every so often, he would lean down to the stroller, whisper something in a baby talk voice, and then look back at us with a wide smile. When we arrived at his house, he led us up the walkway. He wheeled the stroller inside first, then held the door open and invited us in. Kevin stepped inside, and I followed, my heart starting to pound a little faster. I asked if we could keep the door open. The man hesitated for a moment, then said, "Sure, no problem." He told us he'd go grab the candy. He left the stroller in the middle of his living room, just a few feet away from us. I felt a growing sense of unease. Something was wrong. I whispered to Kevin, "Why wouldn't he just keep the candy by the door?" But Kevin wasn't listening. He was staring at the stroller. He took a few steps towards it, reached out, and lifted the fabric cover.
Whatever he saw made the color drain from his face. He didn't make a sound. He just scrambled back to me, his eyes wide with a kind of panic I'd never seen before, and whispered, "We need to leave, now." The second we were out the door, he started running, and I ran right behind him, our heavy candy sacks thumping against our legs. I was still trying to process what had happened when a woman's voice called out from a neighboring house, "Hey, are you two okay?" She ran over to us and asked if she knew the man who lived there. That's when Kevin finally told her. "He offered us candy," he said, his voice shaking. "But there wasn't a baby in that stroller. It was a doll." I felt a cold chill run down my spine. "I know," she said, her face grim. "That man doesn't have any children. I saw him walking with you and got worried." She immediately put us in her car and drove us home. When my mom heard the story, she was horrified. After she got every last detail out of me, my parents called the police. They never told me what became of the man. I think they just wanted to shield me from it. My mom wouldn't let me go to Kevin's house after that, and though we still saw each other at school, our friendship was never quite the same.
It was the weekend before Halloween in 2022. My friends and I were scrambling for plans since every official event was sold out. We were a group of 4 girls, and all we wanted was to find a decent house party to show off the costumes we'd spent weeks putting together. In a move I would have been too embarrassed to make, my friend Maya posted on her social media story asking if anyone knew of any parties. To my surprise, it actually worked. A guy we were vaguely friends with sent her an address for a party in Northwood Hills, a suburb not too far from us. The instructions he forwarded were a little strange. The party was indoors only, and you had to bring your own drinks. We all met at our friend Chloe's house to get ready. After an hour, we called a rideshare and headed over. When we arrived, the house looked impressive. It was a big 2-story brick house that looked a little too perfect, almost like a model home. There were cars parked all up and down the street, so we figured we were in the right place. We could hear the faint thump of music as we walked up to the door. Inside, the only light came from a few strings of orange Halloween lights, casting long shadows across the rooms. It was crowded, but we didn't recognize a single person. While Maya texted our guy friends to see if they'd arrived, a man who looked to be in his 50s approached us. He introduced himself as Mark and said his son Josh was the one throwing the party. When I asked where Josh was, he just smiled and said, "Oh, he's around here somewhere." He then led us to the kitchen to put our drinks in a cooler. He was friendly, but something about him felt off. It was strange to see a parent so involved in a college-aged party, especially one this big. He seemed to be making the rounds, but we noticed he was mostly talking to the girls. We found an empty beer pong table and started playing. A little while later, Mark called my name and Maya's from across the room. "Shots," he yelled. When my other friends, Chloe and Jessica, looked left out, I asked if we could all have one. He just grinned and said, "Yeah, sure." He poured us 4 shots of tequila. It was strong, and I was already starting to feel it. A few minutes later, he came back over and asked what we liked to drink. After we told him, he went to work making us all mixed drinks. He came back with 4 red Solo cups. He'd made me a rum and coke. I sipped it slowly during our game because I was already feeling pretty drunk. After our game, I went to grab my phone from an outlet where I'd left it charging, only to find the outlet was dead. My battery was still low. It was around this time that our guy friends finally showed up. I remember talking to one of them, Ben, and then nothing. The night goes completely blank. The next thing I knew, I was being shaken awake in the back of a car. We were parked outside my house. My head was spinning and my vision was blurry. It was a dizzy, disconnected feeling I'd never experienced from just drinking. One of our friends walked me to my door, and I stumbled inside and went straight to bed. I checked my phone and saw a series of texts from an unknown number. The first one was from me. I had texted this person my own name. The reply was Mark. My stomach dropped. The next text from him, sent while I was still at the party, said, "You look so cute." Then there was a 2-hour gap, followed by another message, "Where did my favorite girls go?" I couldn't believe I'd given him my number. I must have been more out of it than I realized. I put my phone down and passed out. The next morning, I woke up to more texts from him, and these were terrifying. They had all been sent around 3 a.m. The first one said, "Where are you? I'm coming to your house. You left something here." It was followed by, "I'm here. Can you come to the door?" He had also tried to call me 3 times. I immediately sent screenshots to my friends, and that's when the full story came out. They told me that Mark had been all over me and that I had become almost zombie-like. They got worried and decided to pull me out of there. As they were leaving, they noticed that the house was completely empty. There was no furniture, no chairs, no beds, just beer pong tables and a crowd of people. One of my friends looked up the address. The house wasn't owned by anyone named Mark. It was a vacant property listed for sale. We were starting to think there was no son named Josh. And when Chloe suggested that he might have drugged my drink, it all made a terrifying amount of sense. We went to the police station and reported everything. The officer at the front desk didn't seem surprised. He asked if our report was about the party in the vacant house. Apparently, neighbors had already called in a noise complaint. We gave a detective the whole story and the fake number Mark had used. They told us they would look into it, but we never heard from them again. No one was ever arrested. To think that a man could rent a vacant house, throw a fake party just to have access to young women, and then get away with it, it's terrifying. It's been a few years, and the fact that we were never called in to identify anyone scares me. It means he's still out there.